Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Alison. I write as Alison May, 50% of Juliet Bell, and most recently as Sinclair. And here on YouTube I talk about all things writing and publishing related. And today we're going to tackle probably one of the biggest questions in any author's writing career, and that is, should you sign that publishing contract? So this is a question that comes up whether you are a brand new author and putting your first book out on submission with your very first offer from a publisher, and it comes up again and again and again throughout your career. Every time you're offered a contract, it's a decision. It's not a given that you're going to accept that contract. Every time it's a decision based on the circumstances in that moment. So you have an offer in front of you. Should you sign that contract from a publisher or not? The first question, and probably the most important question to ask yourself, is, do I understand this contract? If not, then you need to make sure that you do understand it before you get anywhere near to signing anything. Never sign a contract you don't understand is good advice, not just in publishing but in life. But in publishing it's particularly true. And I see it so often. Authors who are already contracted will come to me and go, oh, I've got this issue with my publisher, or I've had this issue with my editor, or they're putting pressure on for the next book and what they want isn't what I want to write. What can I do? And I say, what does your contract say? And so often the answer is, I'm not sure. So you need to understand your contract before you sign it. What is it tying you into? Is it tying you into more than one book? Does it have timescales for when you deliver those books? What rights is that contract taking? Is it taking the right to publish your book in any language, in any territory, in perpetuity? Or is it taking the right to publish your books in English in the UK and Ireland for 5 years in ebook and print? What is that contract actually about? Do those rights ever come back to you? Is there a rights reversion clause? A lot of contracts will say if sales fall below a certain level, then the rights revert to the author, or they will say if rights are exploited. So if a publisher takes film rights, for example, and doesn't use them or can't sell them, then after a period of time, those rights will revert to the author. So you need to understand your contract. That's the first thing. If you don't, if you're in the UK, I strongly recommend joining the Society of Authors. It costs to join, but as soon as you have a contract offer, you can join, and they offer a contract advice service where you can send their contract in and they will send it back to you with an explanation and with annotations and with questions that they suggest you should clarify before you sign that contract. So number one is, do you understand it? If you're happy you understand the contract, then you're a step further down the road. It may be that just understanding it answers the question for you straight away. It may be that there's clauses in there that you're just not happy with, and if the publisher won't renegotiate those, then that's a no. You shouldn't sign that contract. If there's nothing in the contract that's an absolute red flag, that's absolutely terrifying you away before you've even really got to the point of thinking about putting your signature on the dotted line, the question to then ask yourself is this: what can or will this publisher do for you that you can't or won't do for yourself? Because when you sign a contract with a publisher, you are giving them rights over your book, and you are also giving them a share of the income from sales of your book. In return from that, they're going to invest, you hope, in your book, in editing your book, in putting a cover on it, in marketing and promoting your book, in distributing your book. So they're going to make an investment for which they expect a return, and then you still get a slice of the income from the book, your royalty. But you are giving something to your publisher in return for them making an investment. So the question is, what investment are they actually going to make? And is that going to be over and above what you could do for yourself profitably? So think about all of the steps that it takes to get a book from manuscript to being a product, either digital or physical or both, that people can purchase and read. So you're probably going to need some editorial input on the book. Structural editing, copy online editing, proofreading. Those are the normal stages that a book would go to after you've got a finished draft that publishers accepted. There's usually still 3, you would hope, rounds of editorial. So what is the publisher going to do editorially? There's then a set of technical processes to format the book, upload the book to sales sites. If you're doing a print run, format the book for print, physically get it printed, pay for a print run, or get it set up for print on demand. So there's a whole load of technical knowledge there and time spent on those processes. And if the publisher is doing a print run of 1,000, 1,500, 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, books, there is a cost there. They are paying up front for the cost of printing and then warehousing those books. Then there is the promotion of the book. So there's how the book itself is packaged, first of all. So the book cover, the blurb, are they going to get quotes from other authors to go on your book jacket? So all of that packaging of the book, there's cost there in the cover design, there's time there in writing the blurb, seeking out authors who might give cover quotes, those sorts of things. Then there is the sales and distribution of the book. Are they going to be able to place your book in bookstores? Are they going to be able to get your book into promotional offers on selling sites? What is their strategy for doing that? What is their plan for doing that? And then there's the longer term promotion of the book. So what are they doing around publication day? Is there going to be a blog tour? Are they submitting the book to print publications for reviews? If they're going into bookstores, are they going to push to try and get window promotions, space on centre tables in bookstores, those kinds of things? So those are the things to think about that a publisher might do for you. Now, realistically, for most books, publishers won't necessarily do all of those things. A lot of the time, you're going to be looking at editorial, cover design, blurb, probably maybe a blog tour online, maybe some social media advertising, maybe Facebook advertising, maybe Amazon adverts. But you're probably not going to be looking at distribution into bookstores necessarily. Is that an issue for you? If you're not getting distribution into bookstores, is everything else something that you could do for yourself? All of those things, the editorial processes, the cover design, arranging a blog tour, are things that A, you might feel you have the skills to tackle independently, or B, certainly are things that you can pay directly to those professionals to do those things for you. So you can pay someone to organise a blog tour for you. There's some really reputable blog tour organisers out there who have very reasonable fees. You can also pay a cover designer directly. If you have experience in image manipulation, graphic design, things like that, you may feel confident to design your own cover. Editorially, I think this is a really good point where you are going to likely to need some input from someone else. But again, you can pay editors and proofreaders directly, and then you're investing in your book, but then you're getting all of the return at the other end of the process, and you're maintaining control over your book and the process of getting it out there into the world. The other thing to think about, mixed in with all of that, is this publisher paying an advance? Now, traditionally, that's been one of the big advantages of going with a traditional publisher, that you get some money upfront when you sign the contract. Advances aren't ubiquitous though. Most digital first publishers, not all, but a lot of digital first publishers won't pay an advance. You would hope then that they would pay a higher royalty rate on the books that are sold, and that they would get that book to market quite quickly so that you're not waiting indefinitely for income. Those publishers who do pay in advance will usually pay it in multiple stages. So one payment on signing the contract, usually one payment on delivering the edited manuscript, possibly a third payment on the publication date of the book. If your contract is for 2 or 3 books, it'll be split further, potentially over the multiple different manuscripts. So when you see a headline of, oh, such a body got a 5-figure or a 6-figure advance, you've got to remember that that isn't going to be money in their bank account on the day they signed the contract. That's likely to be spread over a year, possibly longer if it's a multi-book contract. So all of those things are things to think about when you're thinking, should I sign this publishing contract? I think sometimes there's an expectation, because we work so hard to try to get published, that writers are going to be grateful when a publisher offers them a contract, that you should just be delighted and sign on the contract and have your happy day on social media where you announce that you've signed your contract and all is great and all is well, and that's the dream and you've made it. But publishing is a business, and publishers are in the business of making money for publishers. Now, the best publishers and the best editors do that in a way that is also supportive of their authors and supportive of their authors developing a long-term career. But that's not always the case. There are publishers who take on a huge number of books, put them out with quite low levels of effort, and then of those huge numbers of books, 2 or 3 will do quite well, just sort of off their own back, and they will then support those 2 or 3 books, and that's how they generate their profits across the company. They're not focused on whether any one individual author is developing a career and developing a long-term record. They're just interested in, let's get these things out there and kind of see what sticks. So publishing is a business, and authors at this stage, if you want to build a career and if you want to make an income from it, need to treat it in a business-like fashion. And counterintuitively, that will sometimes mean turning down a contract. And that's really hard to do. And it can feel like quite a brave thing to do when you've worked and worked and worked and worked and worked to get to the point where someone is offering you a publishing deal. To walk away from it takes a lot of guts. But sometimes it is the right career decision. If that publisher isn't committing to do anything for you that you couldn't or won't do for yourself, either by doing it literally for yourself or by paying professionals directly to provide you with those services, then why are you signing with a publisher? There should be something over and above what you are able and willing to do for yourself that a publisher is bringing to the table. And able and willing will be different for everybody. It might come down to what you can afford to do. So when I was very first out on submission, I wasn't in a position to self-publish my work. I didn't have the financial resources to pay for the professional services I would have needed to do that in a way that I would have felt happy with. So at that point, what I was able to do was limited financially. For other people, it might be limited by time, it might be limited by your skill set, it might be limited just by your interest and inclination. I have self-published subsequently. I've self-published some titles that reverted to me from my first publisher. And honestly, I don't really enjoy self-publishing. It's fine, I have the skills, I have the contacts, I now have the financial resources to do it if I think it's the best option for the book, but it's not something that I particularly enjoy. So think about what you are actually willing to do, what you actually want to do, what you are going to invest your time in doing. The fact that you could self-publish a book, again, doesn't necessarily mean that doing so is the best choice for you if you know that you are unlikely to maintain the level of kind of interest and oversight of that book that you need to keep promoting it longer term. So there you go. It was a little bit of a stream of consciousness, but hopefully that gives you some idea of the things to think about when you have a publishing contract in front of you. Do you understand the contract, most importantly? If not, make sure you do understand it before you make any decisions. And then what can or will this publisher do for you that you can't or won't do for yourself? That's the question. And here endeth today's video. I will be back next Friday talking about some other publishing related topic. If you enjoy this sort of content and if you're interested in the publishing industry and in novel writing, please do subscribe to the channel and share this channel with all of your writing friends. It makes such a difference to YouTube creators when people subscribe, so please do that and encourage your friends to do so too. And I will see you next week.